Hello, today for Discussion Board Forum 4, we are going to be focusing on the First Amendment. We'll talk about the importance of it, some complications related to it, some court cases involving it, and some applications to modern society. First, the importance of the amendment. The First Amendment, being the First Amendment, is the most important one. When the Constitution was being written, there were two sides, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And the Anti-Federalists, including people like Thomas Jefferson, refused to sign the Constitution unless it included a Bill of Rights. This was a list of 10 rights that were granted to every citizen. The first 10 amendments are greatly centered around the things that the king did to the colonists during the American Revolution, and they wanted to make sure that the current federal government would not take away the same rights and liberties that the king did again. For example, the Third Amendment, which is that soldiers are not allowed to live in one's household, that's one that we read it today and we're like, that's pretty strange because, why would that happen? But back then, with the Quartering Act, that was something that they needed to be fearful of. The First Amendment granting freedom of speech, press, religion, and peaceful assembly was one that was very important. Freedom of speech to be able to be critical of your government, like the John Peter Zenger trial in 1734. The new government wanted to make sure that the citizens had the right to speak out against the things they didn't like without facing punishment. Freedom of religion, also very important because of the religious founding of the colonies. That's the thing that everybody came over to America for, was freedom of religion, so that was very important as well. Some court cases involving the First Amendment. We have the Debs v. United States court case in 1919, where Eugene V. Debs was accused of espionage for not wanting to join part in the United States military following World War I. There were claims that he was discussing military secrets, but he claimed that this was all a part of his First Amendment right, was to say, no, I don't want to be a part of the army, and I will peacefully protest my right for this as well. The First Amendment has been huge in lots of other court cases, centered mostly around things that people say that they don't really understand what the amendment protects. So the amendment doesn't protect malice speech. Many times people go to court and claim that it's their First Amendment right to say the things they're saying, but they don't realize that their speech has malice. They're threatening people, and even if they don't intend to act on those actions, on those threats, it's still seen as something you can't do because you're threatening the well-being of an individual. Modern society, the First Amendment is where things get interesting. I often hear in my line of work, students say, well, it's my First Amendment right to say these things. Well, not really. All right. So first of all, people like to claim their First Amendment right when they've already signed that right away in a private contract, whether it's with a private company or they've signed in certain cases to a school, where they've signed a code of conduct that says, hey, I won't act this way, I won't say things that hurt other people, I won't blah, blah, blah. And then they do it, and they're like, well, that's my First Amendment right. Okay. But in modern day, people need to realize that you can sign your First Amendment right away to private corporations and companies and institutions, and they can basically just say, well, hey, this is what you agreed to, this is what you get, so you're fired or you're out. The other thing that people need to realize is that a threat is not a form of accepted, protected speech. On social media now, you see a lot of people making threats, whether it's something that they think is pointless and harmless, like their football team loses a game and they're talking about, threatening the quarterback or threatening the running back or the cornerback or whatever. And then that person takes it seriously and they get sued. Now, I know that there's probably not a lot of athletes out there suing people like that, but when you're threatening somebody like that, if they perceive the threat as real, that is not protected First Amendment speech. So people need to be cautious. The other thing is, in modern society, is that People don't think that their words and actions can get them in trouble for things they do outside of their workplace. It is not protected speech. If you are threatening somebody, bullying somebody, encouraging somebody to do things to harm themselves or others, that's not protected speech. You are endangering society. So I think it's important that people realize where the First Amendment came from, why it was put in place so the government wouldn't abuse its power, the previous records of the First Amendment, making sure that, you do have a right to say, I don't want to be drafted, I don't want to participate in the military, blah, 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 blah. And then also realizing, all right, well, just because I had this First Amendment right doesn't mean I can abuse it and say whatever I want to whoever I want. This is why the First Amendment is probably one of the most important amendments, and it's something that everybody knows of but doesn't fully understand. And the idea is, hopefully in the future, that people will start to understand the First Amendment, what they can and can't do, what's protected and what's not, to make American society better.